Hi there. I hope that sound came through okay, because that's my main excuse for everything that I'm going to get wrong in this video. Before we get started, I should point out that this isn't going to be a review, and it won't say everything that I loved or everything that I disliked about this game, just some of my thoughts based around one particular element that I found interesting. Anyway, let's get into it. Superhot Mind Controlled Elite is the 2017 sequel to the 2016 game Superhot. It's a single-player first-person shooter, and it revolves around completing a number of stages under slightly different circumstances every time in order to progress through each level, and thus through the game. In Superhot, time is dramatically slowed whenever the player character isn't moving, and accelerates at the same rate as their movements. If you look around, fire a shot, or slide to the left, your enemies, their bullets, and any other shifting environmental elements speed back up to, and beyond, the types of speeds that you might expect from your bog-standard shooter. And this makes for some interesting gameplay. Most of your time in combat is spent moving as slowly as possible, which confusingly makes you a lot faster, able to assess your surroundings and creep ever closer to your enemies, dodging their bullets until you get within reach, or have passed enough time to take another shot. Such a change has a drastic effect on how the game plays, and this makes the experience rather unique. You feel formidable, like a normal person who has been imbued with some sort of superpower, thrust into this life or death situation, which is often a solid basis for an action film or story, in my opinion. Which is good, because Mind Controlled Elite is exactly the type of game that should have you feeling like John Wick. Thanks to your supercharged situational awareness, you get all the time in the world to plan out your moves, your reactions to the challenges set out for you, meaning that the player character can string together a devastating series of attacks in what to them appears to be real time, without the player themselves having to act faster than a speeding bullet. And this is especially effective and altogether evident in the replays that show each of your fights in full, sewing the entire scene together into one flowing movement that exhibits the full force of the kick-ass killing machine that you've become. Unfortunately, and I know this is a silly complaint, the replay almost feels too fast for me to really appreciate this, as the events rush by slightly too quickly to savour every moment. And yes, you can control the speed here, but it never runs smoothly when you do, and the default is just a bit too speedy to match the rhythm of the best action sequences in choreographed fiction. I know that I'm nitpicking here, but I thought it was relevant that such a tiny detail can have such a great impact in the wider context of the experience. Here's the meat and potatoes though, the bit that made me make this video. Throughout the game we are brought back, time and time again, to a level that we play through in the tutorial. In our revisits, it is entirely devoid of enemies, and it's one of the key drivers of the game's story, even if predominantly through its placement after key points in our progression through the game. It's a bit like those dreams with the kid in Mass Effect 3, except it's not quite so completely awful. Hey, there's actually another way in which this game resembles Mass Effect 3, but we'll get to controversial endings in a little while. I think that Mind Controlled Elite does this singular space that you return to really well. It becomes a pattern in you, almost identical every time you come across it, and yet different enough that it's never as boring as the repetitive patterns of other games, even those that aren't trying to retread the same ground. Having that pattern built into your muscle memory also means that every detraction from it, every disruption of the familiar routine is a frustration, so that when you're sent back a few meters or when you get slower with each step, you're just desperately charging forward, single-mindedly pushing towards that one goal, the figure at the end, with no interest in anything else. You've been fine-tuned and turned towards it, and you won't let anything stop you. It's mind control at its finest, something that some of the most interesting games that I've ever played have achieved in harnessing the player's desire to reach the goals that are set out before them. If I wanted to turn off the game, I could, but I can't want to do that when the goal is in sight. I will do whatever the game, and more specifically, that recurring level, demands of me, be it agonizing over every slowing step, treading the same ground over and over and over, or attacking a supposed enemy, a figure who lies helpless on the floor. Killing the unarmed in the name of my directive, doing what I have been trained to do. Later on we give up our powers, one by one, to progress in the story, making our own journey much tougher in the name of completing the game's wishes. And it doesn't end there. We are stripped not only of our additional abilities, but also those afforded to us by Superhot's core gameplay. We are rendered unable to shoot, to throw, to punch, to jump, to look around, and to move. And eventually, after the game has broken down entirely, quite literally becoming unplayable, and all that is left is a black void speckled with pixelated stars, and the player's determination to push on, we are asked to wait, without closing the game, for an uninterrupted period of 2.5 hours, decreased from the 8 that were required upon the game's release, so that we can finally claim to have completed Mind Control Delete. I don't think that this is a good ending by any means, and I can fully get behind the anger that people have felt at the game over the years, but to be really annoying about it, I do find this thematically interesting. Throughout the game, we are asked to give up control whenever we kill enough enemies to move on to the next stage, and once again at the end of the game, when we have already given up everything else that we have. The very concept of our autonomy is the last barrier to our complete subjugation. The lengths that we, as players, will go to in order to fulfill the arbitrary requirements that interactive entertainment can demand of us makes for an interesting commentary on escapism that frankly leaves you in quite a depressing place. Is my time really that worthless that it's best spent waiting 2.5 hours for a game to offer some minute validation in telling me that I'm allowed to stop playing it? Is there nothing better in my life than this? Well, I actually spent those 2.5 hours whipping up some dinner and watching the 2003 movie The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, so make of that what you will. I suppose, all in all, I just appreciated what Superhot was doing here. Over the last year or so, I've played a lot of games that I felt weren't really offering anything either particularly clever or at least generally daring. And as much as I had more fun with Mind Control Delete's combat than I did with its philosophizing, which I'm pretty sure is a real word, I do genuinely believe that the overall experience was greatly improved by having something that stuck with me after I left the game alone. And that's all I really wanted to talk about today. So thanks for watching. I know this video didn't really go anywhere or have much substance compared to most of what I at least try to do, but I still appreciate you sticking around for something short as well. If you've played the game, I would love to hear your thoughts, and if you haven't played the game, I suppose that statement still applies. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video today. If you didn't, then please do let me know why, because I'm always looking to improve, and as always, it'd be great to see you next time.